So, of course, as of today, the Georgia Bulldogs play the Missouri Tigers at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. And man, should this be a great game. I think this is going to be a pretty exciting game for one side and a probably not so exciting game for the other side. But, of course, I'm going to get into more details right now. But, of course, before I get right into this video, make sure to like and subscribe, turn on that notification bell, help me out a little bit. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now, of course, we have to give Georgia's little backstory. They are coming off of a very dominant win where they absolutely destroyed the Florida Gators by a score of 34-7. They are also undefeated, currently the #1 team in the entire country, and they actually debuted at #1 in the college football national playoff ranking, or the college football playoff ranking. So that's definitely that's an indicator of what can come in the future. I mean, Georgia is a couple of games away, and let's just face it, they're not really super difficult games considering the past schedule we had. They're a couple of games away from being ranked #1 in the college football playoffs, or at least having a spot in the college football playoffs. Now, getting into the real stuff, there are a lot of questions who will start this week for Georgia, just like there were a lot of questions last week. Now, Stetson Bennett, they said that he made the offense better, but he came off of a pretty rough week and a pretty hard performance versus Florida. I mean, he was only 10 for 19, 161 yards, did have one touchdown, but also threw 2 interceptions that were pretty ugly. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Those 2 interceptions were not his best throws. Those weren't good throws at all. It's not like the ball got tipped or anything. It's like he threw it right to the defensive back. Man, Stetson Bennett, he has struggled against bigger linemen. I'm not going to completely discredit him. He's been playing absolutely amazing over these last couple of weeks. However, it's worth questioning. I mean, Florida's a great team. They have a great defensive line. They have a tall defensive line, which really that's what Stetson Bennett struggles with his shorter stature at the quarterback position. So I don't quite know who will start, but I can make an educated guess that JT will be back pretty soon. Now, of course, like I said, it is time to pull the plug. I think JT is going to be back in the lineup soon enough. But going into the season stats for both quarterbacks, starting off with Stetson Bennett, he is 67 for 101, 1,157 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Stetson Bennett, he's played really good this season. Besides that last game against Florida, the rest of the season has been pretty much a smooth cruise as far as Georgia's concerned. I mean, you can credit Stetson Bennett for beating 2 top 10 teams, really. You have Kentucky, who was just outside of the top 10. Then you have Arkansas, who was the #8 team at one point. So Stetson Bennett has put together a really good resume in what possibly could be his last season at the University of Georgia. However, JT Daniels, he's been really good. And yes, he's played some limited games because of that lat issue. I'll get more into injuries later. He is 54 for 71, 567 yards, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the season. Normal, excellent play we expect from JT Daniels. I think he will be back this week. I want to believe he will be back, but he's nursing that injury, and the way Stetson's been playing, of course, besides last week, I wouldn't be surprised if Stetson got to start this game and Georgia just cruised along to what should be a pretty good win. Now, of course, going into the offensive stats, Georgia has one of the better offenses in the entirety of college football, and not many people talk about it, which is quite understandable because their defense is literally probably the best defense we've all ever seen. Let's just be honest. Now, Georgia, their offense averages 38 points per game. In Georgia's rushing game, you also have to talk about that, like you have to talk about every year with that Georgia team. I mean, they have a great running back every season. However, Georgia as a team has rammed for 1,542 yards on the season, as Zamir White pretty much leads the team in every major statistical rushing category, which, let's face it, we could have predicted that. And going down to the Florida game, that was a really good rushing game for Georgia. They ran for almost 200 yards as a team, and the main carrier, the main guy, Zamir White, he had 105 yards on what I want to believe is 14 carries and 1 touchdown. So Georgia's rushing, it's been superior over the last couple of weeks and been superior all season. Now, going into the obvious fact, Georgia's defense is literally the best defense in college football, and personally, in my life, the best college football defense I have ever seen. They're only allowing 6.6 points per game, 74 rushing yards per game, and 151 passing yards per game. Georgia has been absolutely immaculate on the defensive side. However, there's one thing. There's one thing I have to pause on. There's one thing that will wipe the smile off my face, and that is called injuries. JT Daniels has a lat issue, And that's a day-to-day. Of course, Arian Smith's going to be questionable. Kendall Milton, out. George Pickens, out. Dominic Blaylock, out. Justin Robinson, out. Tate Ratledge, out. Tyke Smith, out. Ryan Davis, out. Jalen Kimber, out. And Jamari Saylor is also out. So Georgia has a lot, and by a lot, I mean a complete plethora list of injuries. Now, the next man up mentality is something that Georgia does pretty well. Broderick Jones should step in pretty well for Jamari Saylor. He's been really good. I mean, Jamari Saylor is an All-American, but Broderick Jones, he's coming out of high school. He was one of the best recruits in all of the nation. So I want to believe that he'll be able to step in and provide some really good blocking for us. Now, moving on to the Missouri Tigers, they are coming off a 37-28 win over Vanderbilt and are currently 4-4, so sitting right at 500. They are so far unranked this season, which is kind of surprising. However, they still have a really talented team. Now, quarterback Connor Blazelak, I want to pronounce that name right. He will not play, but he's had an amazing season. 2,138 yards this season with 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. However, it looks like quarterback Tyler Macon is set to start, and he hasn't had a lot of playing time this season. He's 3 for 4 for 69 yards and 1 touchdown on the season, so things could possibly get a little bit questionable for this Missouri offense getting into this game. But of course, speaking of offense, their offense has been it's been pretty respectable this season, to say the least. I mean, Missouri, they put up 35 points per game and well over 400 yards, including 174 rushing yards per game and just about 280 passing yards per game. So Missouri, they're near the top when it comes to the offensive statistics. However, their offense has struggled against one highly ranked opponent. That opponent, was Texas A&M. They only scored 14 points against Texas A&M just about 3 weeks ago, and that's kind of a red flag because Georgia's the #1 defense in the entirety of college football, so it could be potential problems for this Missouri offense. I mean, you have a backup quarterback, you have struggled with your starter against a really good Texas A&M team that's not quite as good as Georgia. You can make that argument, but I don't think they're as good as Georgia on the defensive end. Yeah, things could possibly get a little bit chippy for this offense going into this game. However, moving on to the Missouri defense, and it's not that great. Missouri's defense has been terrible. It's been really bad. It's been hard to watch at some points. They allow a whopping 36 points per game, and they gave up a season high for them, 62 points against Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, that is absolutely ridiculous. The Mizzou defense allows nearly 300 rushing yards per game and almost 200 passing yards per game. They are both huge red flags considering Georgia is such a great offense. And not only that, but they're also such a great defense. So things can get really bad for Missouri really quickly in this game. Now, of course, Mizzou, they're also dealing with a ton, and by a ton, I mean an absolute plethora of injuries as well. Now, their starting quarterback, Connor Blazelak, he is out with a soft tissue issue. Of course, Sean Robinson, he is out undisclosed injury. Ishmael Burdine, he is out. Mookie Cooper is going to be questionable. Chance Looper is going to be questionable. Case Cook, out. Chris Turner, out. Mason Pack, out. Ennis Rakestraw, out. And Jay Macklin also most likely to be out. Mizzou is dealing with a lot of injuries. Both teams are really dealing with a lot of injuries, so you can possibly see a lot of next man up mentality during this game. Now, going on to keys to winning the game for each team. Georgia, first key, they need to run the ball. Mizzou allows 300 rushing yards per game. It is no reason why Georgia should not dominate the run column. They need to come out pounding the football, especially with 2 quarterbacks, one questionable because of injury and another one questionable because of his performance last week. I think Georgia's going to have to dominate the run this game. Then, of course, number 2, you have to contain Missouri's run. Missouri runs for just about 200 yards per game. You're going to need to contain that run. They're one of the best rushing teams in the entire nation. Georgia's defense, they need to be able to contain that run, or else it's going to be a pretty tough game. Then, again, number 3, as I said, next man up mentality. Georgia needs to fill in those injuries on the offensive line, the defensive line, and pretty much everywhere when it's concerned with Georgia, to be honest. However, Georgia needs to fill in those injuries. I believe they will do that quite well, and I want to say that they will be able to handle this game against Missouri. Now, in the ridiculous chances that Missouri actually has a chance at winning this game, which they're an SEC team, not going to disrespect them, they're still a great team. Mizzou, what they need to do to win this game, number 1, get their run game going. Obviously, the run game is the strength of their offense. They're going to need to get the run game going, and that's key for producing very long, sustained drives. Another point I'm going to get to later. However, Mizzou, they need to get their run game going. That is their strength. Number 2, they need to get their quarterback some protection. Yes, it's going to be tough for Tyler Macon being a backup quarterback. However, you're going to need to get him protection anyway. That Georgia defense has a very, very good knack of pressuring the quarterback. And when that Georgia defense is getting pressured, they're probably the most dominant defense that all of us have ever seen. So Mizzou, they need to protect their quarterback and let Tyler Macon get a little bit comfortable. He is a backup. But if they want a flying chance to win this game, they're going to have to protect quarterback Tyler Macon. And number 3, as I said earlier, for Mizzou, they need to have long, sustained drives. This is key for Mizzou winning this game. They need to have some long, good, sustained drives. And if they can do this and keep that Georgia offense off the field, I believe that's how they have their best chance to win. However, let's face it, Mizzou winning or even scoring more than 14 points is an absolute long shot. I have Georgia winning this game fairly easily, 48-0. I just think Georgia is a better team at this point. It's as simple as that. I mean, Missouri, they are a great team, very respectable record, very respectable schedule. I really like Mizzou as a team. However, they're still sort of in the rebuilding phase. Most of their team is younger, freshmen, redshirts, sophomores, all the things in the hoopla right there. Georgia, they're definitely contending as of right now. They're the number 1 team in the nation, best defense in probably history of the school, but definitely the best defense right now. And of course, their offense, maybe getting JT Daniels back. So it's going to be a very, very, in my opinion, easy win for Georgia. I won't say easy because I don't want to disrespect Mizzou, but it's going to be a fairly nice win for Georgia. But of course, that's going to end this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. You guys help me out a little bit. TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, all those links are in the description. I would really appreciate it if you follow those. But even if you don't follow them, I also want to tell you to stay loved and stay blessed. Without further ado, I'm going to end this video. Thank you for watching.
Wanna be rappers brag about already being the best. I respect many people for the job they've done. It is full of jealousy is what I like especially. I like a lot of funky man that lack